This is my suburban Sunday fun day experiment. That is a mass of coffee roots that I've grown hydroponically in a water solution with some oxygen bubbling through it. Trying to see if I can grow plants in water and then transfer them to soil. So this guy's about to get transferred. And the other thing I'm doing with this plant, since it's grown indoors, etc., is I am harvesting leaves. I'm going to dry these leaves, and for the first time I'm going to make the Ethiopian coffee tea leaf drink, Koti, or Keti as it's called. And those are the dogs getting excited about something. Jeez. All right. Yeah, so this is going to be interesting. So my understanding of how you properly prepare Keti is that you take your leaves and you dry them, and then they are roasted, actually. The only time I've been served Keti, because it's not served that often in Ethiopia, in my experience, on my trips, is in Harar, quite a few years ago. I was prepared for us, and at the time I don't think I really appreciated it that much. But it isn't like coffee. It has caffeine, and it's kind of a very might be a little challenging because it's quite bittering in my experience, and people generally use quite a lot of sugar for it. So let's see how that goes. But we'll do some repotting here and some tea making. That is Iola. This is Koti or Keti, my attempt to make Ethiopian coffee leaf tea, and we have some weather today that's pretty gray. I couldn't get this to dry, so what I did was I withered it in my toaster oven. I've done this before with other dried herbs like thyme, like mint, to make tea, and thyme and stuff, and I put it on 200 to 225 with the fan with convective heat, and it works pretty good. They're very beautiful, but as you can see, they're fully dried. I don't want to break them up too much. And my big question is now, do I make tea directly, or do I roast it? And my memory from Harar was that I roast it. And I'll use an iron skillet, I think, with basically nothing on it, break it into pieces, and kind of try to roast it slightly right before brewing it. That's what I remember happening in Harar. I will also try to do it directly, and we'll see which one works better. Okay, so this is the part where I am preparing my leaves in two different ways. It's my coffee leaves for Koti or Keti. And what I had to do is actually, since I couldn't dry them in the sun, I used the toaster oven on convection at a very low temperature, about 250. And but before I had the chance to make them, they kind of took on moisture. So this is one that I didn't, that kind of took on more moisture, and then I basically kind of re-crisped them again just before doing this. And I'm going to be making a cup with the just dried, withered leaf, and here I am sort of trying to, on a light flame, slightly roast. I decided cast iron might be the best, just for a even heat. And that's because this is what I sort of slightly remember from the only experience I had in Harar, or outside Harar, I think near Hirna, in the eastern coffee growing regions of Ethiopia. So I'm going to get this just lightly browned a little bit, and we make 2 different cups of Keti tea. Okay, so this is roasted, unroasted, just dried coffee leaf tea. We are ready with some very hot water. I am just decided to sort of directly infuse this, and then if it doesn't sink, which I kind of imagine it won't, I am going to either just filter it with a spoon or run it through a little filter. But I wanted to just use clear glasses so I could see. I mean, I'm not a tea expert, but part of the benefit here, as far as I imagine it, would be that just directly infusing like this would get some better extraction. Just top off a little. And let's see how it goes. So in terms of the flavor, I am impressed that it is less alkaloid-like flavor, kind of definitely leafy in both cases. I would say that I actually am enjoying the unroasted a little better. This tasted more like roasted seaweed, as you might expect. And this is actually quite a delicate cup. The dried but not roasted, and I simply crumbled these, used the hottest water I could. I actually covered these when for about 8 to 10 minutes. I didn't time it, and then decanted it. So Keti, coffee leaf tea, very interesting. If you have a coffee plant, and I hope you do, it's very easy to make. And you can do as I did, which is dry it about 20 minutes in your toaster oven on a very, very low heat with a high airflow, and make a kind of interesting beverage here. It is quite good. I'm surprised how much I'm enjoying this, and I think it's quite different from my experience in Ethiopia that did taste very kind of an aggressive form of bittering from the caffeine, I think, in the leaf. And there definitely is caffeine in the leaf. I would think this is much lower than coffee or anything made with the seed. And it's very good, like a nice green tea. This one is definitely more kind of herbaceous and more familiar, similar to a green tea. And the roasted, as expected, kind of has a slight nuttiness, and finding it a little hard to describe. I think there's a kind of oiliness in it too. It's a little more strength apparently from the in the extraction, but really cool. And the difference between the two is kind of interesting too. Easy to replicate what I did here in a matter of minutes and try both. If you have a coffee plant, hopefully you have a coffee plant. And what's interesting is the first reference I see to coffee leaf tea, historically, obviously, in Western literature, is like this 1850s document, which you can look up if you search coffee-leaf tea. It will definitely come up in Google. It's in the New York Times archive and a little bit hard to access. You have to be a member. And it refers to this as something that would be good for the poor people of London, probably working in industry, etc. Well, the rich people can afford actual tea. And they compare it to what they call Paraguay tea, which is actually mate. So some similarities there, but I also find mate to have more of that alkaloidy, caffeinated bittering quality, and this is pretty smooth and quite enjoyable. So, okay, thanks for watching my review of Keti, which is spelt many different ways. Normally, maybe the most common would be Keti. Could be Qeti. It's also Qoti or Koti. I've seen it spelled Cotti, which would be more like choti. But like a lot of things written in Ethiopia, it's sort of from the phonetics, and it can be different ways in Harik regions versus Harare regions versus Oromiffa regions. So spelling isn't set in stone. Okay, Keti.